Support comes from Mechanics Bank, a West Coast bank providing premium personal and business banking services for 120 years. They understand relationships matter and go the extra mile to help clients reach their financial goals. Stop by a branch or visit mechanicsbank.com today. Mechanics Bank, member FDIC.
Hey, I'm Ton Vin, host of Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. Another round of closures is hitting the Seattle food scene. On the latest episode, I'll tell you about one significant closing and 3 new spots that have the restaurant industry buzzing, and which ones you have to try. Listen to Seattle Eats on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Monica Nicholsberg.
And I'm Joshua McNichols.
Every week, you tune into Booming to better understand your community here in the Pacific Northwest. Everything you hear on KUOW, every podcast, every newsletter, every community event relies on your support.
That's right. This is public media, and it exists because you make it possible. You know, we're community funded and people powered, and this kind of public media exists today and will continue to thrive into the future because listeners like you make the choice year after year to back it.
So this week, it's KUOW's Winter Fund Drive. It's this really important time of year when we go on the air and into your podcast feed to ask for your help. Help KUOW finish 2025 strong by making a gift today. It could be $5, $10, or $20 a month, and it'll allow us to continue to dig deep, ask tough questions, and spotlight the local issues that matter to you. Nicholas in Seattle just donated. Be like Nicholas, and thank you.
And to sweeten the deal, we've got a few exclusive thank you gifts for this winter fundraising drive, including a knit hat, a coffee tumbler, and a mini tote.
That mini tote I'm dying for. If any of you have followed the viral Trader Joe's mini tote, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't even know, so I got to look this up. All you have to do to get started, though, is click the link in our show notes or donate on the KUOW app or on KUOW.org.
Thank you for supporting this podcast. Okay, here's the show. We all know the cost of living is really high in Seattle.
Welcome to another edition of Why Is This So Expensive?
It doesn't matter if you're looking for housing or buying groceries. This town is a tough place to make ends meet.
I went to the store today. I got a pack of spaghetti, ground turkey, tomato sauce, and a bag of lettuce. $32. $32.
But how do costs in Seattle stack up to other big cities across the country?
We talked to a researcher who sends armies of shoppers to find out, and we get his tips for making your dollar stretch as far as possible in this very expensive city. That's coming up.
You're the one who charged his own brother for a Bluth frozen banana. I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
You've never actually set foot in a supermarket, have you?
I don't have time for this.
James McCafferty is the director of the Center for Economic and Business Research at Western Washington University. Hi, James. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, Monica.
So I want to start with the big picture. You collected data for this nationwide study that compares the cost of common goods and services in every major city in the U.S. So where does Seattle fall overall when you compare the cities to each other?
You know, most people assume Seattle will be really high, and it is definitely in the top list of cities around the U.S., but falls below the top 10. We actually rank around 14 or so in the U.S. There is a large grouping of cities in the between 40 and 50% above national average, and we fall in that group. So our peer cities would be places like San Diego, certain outskirts of New York, certain areas of Los Angeles, certain areas of Boston. That's kind of our cohort, if you will. So from a major city perspective, we definitely fall below some of the major cities we're used to thinking of, but we definitely are in the upper list of cities across the country.
And how did you figure this out? How did you collect the information for the study, and what kinds of prices did you track?
So the study is run by an organization called C2ER, and they use organizations from around the country, and we all shop the same time, 3 times a year. We shop the same exact list, and some of those items are the exact brand and size, and some are the lowest cost of whatever the item is. It's a bundle of everything from utilities and housing costs and groceries and, exciting things like tennis balls. So it has this really composite list of goods, a good basket of goods, if you will, that the American consumers in general will purchase that are available on a national level. We go out and we collect that information through having our staff go out to actual stores, and then also from making phone calls and then looking things up online. And so it really does the same way any normal person would do their shopping, right? The cool thing is that we actually shop multiple stores in the same market. And so we don't go to just one grocery store, for example. We price 5 and 6 grocery stores. And so there's a lot of rules around how the study is done, so that every time it's done the same way across the U.S. at the same period.
What are some examples of the items that you're using to kind of take the temperature of the cost of living across the U.S.?
So the list has things like olive oil and bread and potato chips. I already mentioned tennis balls. Men's shirts, skirts. It has items, utility costs, newspapers, movie theaters. Jimmy Dean sausage is the one item that I always crack up at because I'm not a purchaser of Jimmy Dean sausage, but by and large, Americans buy a lot of it. And so orange juice is on that list. So all the things that you would typically see in grocery carts being wheeled around the stores that you go to are on that list. It's pretty comprehensive from a comparative standpoint.
How does this method of answering this question of how expensive are U.S. cities compare to other measures out there?
Well, the one measure that most people are familiar with, and because we see it in the newspaper all the time or hear it on the news, is CPI, or Consumer Price Index. And that's the thing that union agreements are tied to for labor. And it's the thing people use a lot to reference and think about what inflation is, which is not the same thing as cost of living. Inflation, as measured by CPI, is actually a fixed basket of goods. So if you go to the grocery store tonight and you're going to buy a loaf of bread, and your usual loaf of bread is $25, and every other loaf of bread there is $4, CPI assumes you will buy the $25 loaf of bread every single time. That's not how most Americans shop, right? And the challenge with CPI is you'll find that one or two categories is driving CPI. So during COVID, we reported really high CPI numbers. And several of those time periods, it was things like autos that were driving that number, pardon the pun. But when you have one item driving the headline number that everyone gets excited about, it's kind of misleading, right? Because if you weren't buying a car, you weren't experiencing the inflation that CPI was talking about. Where a cost of living study actually does study the things that you're actually paying for at a grocery store or services, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of the story across the economy right now, where you've got a handful of measures skewing the average, whether it's companies in the stock market or items in the grocery store. Okay, I want to come back to what makes Seattle special. So what is surprisingly cheap in Seattle compared to other cities?
Well, Seattle is interesting because we get to look at a lot of the behind the scenes data in the study. And so I was looking at the differences around the state. Nationally, it's a really large data set. So there's going to be a lot of things that nationally we might be above and below. But if we just looked at in Washington State, which kind of amused me a little bit because I don't normally do this kind of math. But potatoes are slightly cheaper in Seattle than they are in the rest of the state on average. Lettuce was one. Total energy costs are a few dollars, about $5, $6 less than what we see as a statewide average. Doctor visits are actually less expensive in Seattle than the peer groups that we study. Appliance repair stood out. Newspaper subscription stood out, which makes sense. Both of those items in a denser market, higher population density, become less expensive because of economies of scale. It's just less expensive for those kinds of service industries to operate. But in general, like Seattle prices are not that far different than other regions of the state. And so when I looked at the differences in category-wise, what makes Seattle market feel so much more expensive, we're about 30% or 30 points higher than the rest of the state would be, right? Yeah, which is significant. Housing's actually what's driving that. Housing is about 90% higher in the Seattle market than the other places in the state that we study directly.
Wow.
Which makes sense because wages are significantly higher in the Seattle market, right? And the housing market is always, well, it's supposed to always connect to wages. And so when you have higher wages, you have higher housing costs. So that's as I looked at the markets within the Washington State data, those are the things that stood out to me as, hey, these are outliers, and they're worth talking about.
Have you made any changes in your personal life based on the results of this study? Like, is there anything that you've stopped buying or decided to buy more of?
I don't think I would say I have made any drastic changes, but I can't tell you my staff has. Because we look at all the grocery store data, because we're looking at these different vendors for different providers, it really has shed a light for them around how groceries are priced. Days of week vary, that different grocery stores have drastically different pricing, and it's caused them to realize just how much gamemanship there is in the grocery market. When you go to the same store 2 or 3 times in a week, you start to notice that the prices change during the week, that certain days are more expensive than other days, that items get moved.
Wait, what are the more expensive days and less expensive days?
The more expensive days in groceries are always going to be across the weekend, and it's because historically it's been harder for them to get inventory in. So your highest prices typically in groceries are always Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Your least expensive days are always typically Tuesdays and Wednesdays because it's easy for them to resupply. They've got lots of inventory. They can move through things, and they're not heavy shopping days historically. Definitely from a listener's perspective, shop a variety of stores. Go to stores you wouldn't normally go to and just check some basic prices on things. You will strike up some very interesting conversations with store managers because they like when you walk in with a clipboard, they're very interested. But you can find yourself cutting your grocery bill significantly just by changing the day of week and perhaps the grocery store you're going to. And that's real money at the end of the day.
We hear the price of eggs a lot as a stand-in for saying things are too expensive. This kind of hit its peak a couple years ago, but it's still definitely seen as a bellwether. But when the price of eggs comes down, it's sometimes seen as a sign that economic policies are succeeding. But the price of eggs depends on a lot of things that are outside of the government's control, like bird flu or the weather. So what's a better way to get a grip on what's really happening? Is there another common good or service that you think is a better economic indicator for Seattleites to pay attention to?
I don't think it's going to be one item, and that's the challenge, right? Everyone always wants that one item. We work with a number of organizations, businesses, governments to help them think about metrics, and we get that question a lot. Can you make us one metric? And there really isn't one simple metric. It's complicated, and I think there's this urge from people to simplify. Oh, we just need to make things easier and simpler. Economics is complicated. The economy is complicated. Life is complicated, right? I mean, nothing is that simple to track through. My car insurance went up. It must be because there's terrible drivers. Not necessarily, right? It could be climate change, or it could be any of those other factors facing the insurance industry, and the fact they want to make a profit too, right? So eggs are fascinating because the majority of the U.S. eggs are produced on 3 farms. Which is crazy. I mean, that just sounds absolutely crazy, right? Everyone thinks their eggs come from this cute little farm. You know, it's 10 acres and the farmer's name is whatever, and it's so great. No, they're giant industrial complexes where most eggs come from. But if you have a fire, which happened a few years ago, it drives up the cost of eggs. If you have bird flu, it drives up the cost of eggs. You know, there's all these things that can happen, and we're going to start having this conversation about meat. Right, because that's the latest topic du jour is our meat prices are too high. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, and it's very family dependent. Like if you are a family where the only protein you can get into your kids is eggs, and you're going to pay really close attention to the price of eggs. It gets to my next question, which is sometimes it feels like there's a disconnect between how the overall economy is doing and then my own personal experience. You know, you'll hear that the economy is doing pretty well, all things considered, but I've had to change our meal plan to be simpler and simpler because the cost of groceries keeps going up. So what's behind this dissonance?
You know, you phrase this exactly correct. My personal economy, the economy I experience versus what I read in the paper or hear on the news. There is a very big disconnect there because when we talk about averages and medians, your experience gets washed out, right? So if I tell you that the median home price in Seattle or King County is $968,000, you cough and sputter. But if I go online, I can find homes from 600,000 to a lot more, right? We're talking about averages, right? A lot more. That $2.6 million bungalow, right? I mean, like but that's not my experience, right? And so again, yesterday the stock market was phenomenally up, right? You're like, wow, the stock market's doing great. The stock market's not the economy. The only way you're going to make money in the stock market is if you sell whatever it is you have at the right time, right? And the percentage of Americans that own stock is actually high, but it's in 401ks. So it's not accessible. It's not ready cash. And so you get this dissonance, and then you start not believing anything. And that's where you get latched onto that single item at the store. I can't believe bread's this much.
What's your best advice for families that are trying to sort through all of this conflicting data and both get a sense of where the economy really is now and where it's going?
There's a lot of really crazy economic news out every day. I spend several hours a day just reading news and reports, which is a luxury I guess I have. Most people don't have that. Most people think of the torture, I suppose. We post out about 6 to 8 social media posts every day of economic news that we think is very worthwhile from our center. We do a roundup every week. And so if you really truly want to know what's going on in the economy, you have to get your information from multiple sources. You have to look at international press. You have to look at some different ways to slice things up.
And for your organization, which you said is posting a few times a day, where can people find that? How can they follow along?
They can visit our website. We have links to all of our social media. So we have all of the usual flavors of social media, but our website is www.cebr.wwu.edu. It's a lot of letters. But again, you can find information on all of our different social media posts there.
James McCafferty is an economist at Western Washington University. Thanks for being here, James.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Coming up next, the end game.
Support comes from Mechanics Bank, a West Coast bank providing premium personal and business banking services for 120 years. They understand relationships matter and go the extra mile to help clients reach their financial goals. Stop by a branch or visit mechanicsbank.com today. Mechanics Bank, member FDIC.
All right, we're back for the end game, and Lucy Suchek is here to give it to us.
Hello, I'm excited. I feel like it's been a while since we've done an end game.
Yeah, what do you have for us?
So I wanted James to dig into a little bit more data. So I had him look into the average prices in Washington for items and compare them to national averages.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you 4 of the most expensive items in Washington compared to the national average. And I want you to work as a team to rank them for how more expensive are they.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so the thing that is...
Monica's giving me eyes.
I'm trying to figure it out.
The thing that locally has its price jacked up the most would be at the top of the list.
Exactly. And I have decided not to include home prices or mortgage payments or rent or anything that has to do with that because we all know that that's high and it's annoying. So I want to stick with the fun items.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so here are the 4 things. Fried chicken.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Huh. Newspapers, paper newspapers, gas, and optometry.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Also, one of these is tied.
So we're talking like glasses or like optometry as a profession that offers services?
I don't know exactly, but I'm assuming the profession.
Okay.
Well, I think because of the Seattle Times reporting in the past couple of years, I want to say gas is the more expensive compared to the national average.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not just because we've got higher gas taxes. It's also just because of the way that gas is distributed. It's for some reason we're in this little pocket where it's hard to get to.
Yeah. I don't know why fried chicken is on this list. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah. You know, I've paid some really high prices for chicken in the grocery store lately. I was like, really? Like actually it was like $9 a pound.
Maybe the big chicken farms are not in Washington and it has to travel farther.
I'm just going to cut in here and say it's not fried chicken from grocery stores.
Okay.
It's fried chicken at fried chicken restaurants.
Okay. Well, there we've got the labor of the restaurant industry too.
True.
The high labor costs. So we've also got optometry, and what was the last one?
Newspapers.
Newspapers.
Okay, so with newspapers, we've got, I mean, we used to have pulp mills in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know that we really have any locally anymore. I think they're probably like in Georgia or something.
Okay, so do we want to go gas, newspapers, fried chicken?
I think chicken's up there too. I think chicken's pretty high.
Okay, maybe chicken second.
I think so. And newspapers. And then optometrists. That's just hard. We're just guessing on all of these, Lucy.
We're just speculating wildly.
One of them is tied. So there's going to be like 3, and then one of them is tied. So which one do you think optometry is tied with?
Good question.
Maybe optometry and newspapers at the bottom?
Okay. Final answer?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Where's our buzzer?
Okay. In category 3, like the least, most expensive, it's tied, gas, and optometry.
Wow. Super
Okay.
wrong. Okay.
Okay.
This is around 44.5% higher than U.S. average.
Wow.
Gas is $1.33 higher on average, and optometry comes in at $61 higher.
What do you know?
Okay.
2 is newspapers.
Okay.
Newspapers come in at number 2 at nearly 66% higher than the U.S. average.
Wow. Okay.
And then number 1 is fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
Wow.
I wonder if Raising
yeah.
Cane's coming to town is going to change the landscape.
Perhaps. This one is 88% higher than U.S. average. But to put it in perspective here, we're talking about less than $1.50 more. So there you go.
I got to say, when James McCafferty sent out armies of people to research these things, I'd like to be on the fried chicken team.
Monica, what team would you be on?
Obviously,
so hard
fried
for me
chicken.
to remember this list. I would back Joshua up on the fried chicken team.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
I bet they had a lot of demand to get on that team. Lucy, do you know the reasons for why these things ranked this high?
Unfortunately, I don't. I'm sorry to tell you.
That's okay. It didn't come with James McCafferty's
No, it didn't.
download.
He's got the stats. I didn't get the reasoning from him, but maybe we'll do a future episode.
All right. Thanks, Lucy.
You're welcome.
That's it for Booming. Thanks for listening.
It's the holiday shopping season. We just did a whole episode on how expensive things are, and we know that costs add up. But if you want to get us a gift that won't cost you anything, please consider subscribing to Booming on Apple, Spotify, NPR, wherever you listen to podcasts. This actually really helps us, and it makes sure that you never miss a new show.
Yeah, and while you're there, consider giving us a rating. That will help others discover Booming and support the podcast. So thanks.
Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. I'm Monica Nicholsberg.
I'm Joshua McNichols.
We'll see you next week.